What's going on, everybody? King of Dragons 5000 here, coming at you with another figure review. Today we'll be having a look at the Mattel WWE Elite Collection Ringside Collectible Exclusive, the N.W.O. Scott Hall. Now, I just barely got this guy in the mail today, so I'm really excited I have him in hand. Here we have a picture of Scott Hall. I really do like this box. It's a really nice box. You can see it has the little, I'm gonna guess, blood dripping down, or it's supposed to be blood, but we can say it's paint, right? Even at the top. Maybe they're flames. Black flames. Who knows? But this is a really nice box. It's all black and white with the exception of the flashback and Scott Hall picture. On the side we have another picture of Scott Hall. And on this side it just says Scott Hall and that same picture. On the back we have a little read-up, and it says, "Too sweet, hey yo, here comes the bad guy. Scott Hall is one half of the possibly most dominant duo in WCW history, the Outsiders. But after winning the Tag Team Championship 5 different times, Hall inexplicably turned on his partner and transferred his allegiance to the nearly formed NWO Hollywood faction. Perhaps it was a guilty conscience that led to this very public downward spiral, but Hall was soon booted from NWO Hollywood and left to face Scott Steiner and Horace Hogan alone. Until help came from an unexpected source. That night, the Outsiders put the band back together and reunited to claim a major victory." And of course, since this is a Ringside Collectible Exclusive, there are no other figures in the line. But really happy I have him in hand, and like I said, he is a Ringside Collectible Exclusive figure. So what I'm going to do now is get him out of packaging, and we'll continue his review, so sit tight, everyone. So here we have the Ringside Collectible Exclusive Scott Hall out of the packaging, and right off the bat I'm going to say he's a really nice figure, and I'm really glad I have him in hand. Let's actually go on to his accessories before we get on to the figure himself. First of all, let's move Hall off to the side, so we can show off his first accessory. His first accessory is this little spray can. If you're a fan of wrestling and you're well aware of the NWO storyline, the NWO would always carry a spray can with them, and they'd spray NWO on people's back. Normally I think it was Scott Hall who did the spraying. Maybe it was also Hogan, but the only thing I'm remembering is Scott Hall like drawing or writing the NWO all over people's backs and bodies. Maybe it was a combination of Hogan, Nash, and Hall. Maybe Scott Hall did it the majority of the time, but it's kind of cool that he comes with this little spray can. The next accessory is this NWO t-shirt. Well, not really a t-shirt, it's mainly just a shirt that you throw over his head, and it just slides on like that. So I'll show more of that off in my final thoughts, but really nice shirt. It says NWO New World Order. Let's actually show the detail in it. I remember when I was little, I always wanted an NWO shirt. I just never got one, unfortunately. But really nice detail. It's done really nicely here. There is nothing on the back, which to my knowledge is pretty accurate for the classic NWO shirt. It was just the front of the shirt that had the logo. But really nice. Scott Hall can wear this, as you just saw, but I'll put it on after I show off his other accessory, which is his vest. And let me try getting this off. It doesn't want to come off as easy as I want it to, but eventually it does. And here we have his vest, which, if you remember my Razor Ramon video, if you can rewind to the time I reviewed Razor Ramon, this is the exact same vest he came with, actually. Let me just show that off, just so you guys see what I'm talking about. Here we have Razor's vest, and you can see it's the same sculpt, just different paint job, all the way to the little buckle in the back. To my knowledge, it shouldn't be this way. It should be an actual vest, but you know, I guess there are some things you can overlook and some things I can't, but it's a really nice vest. It's painted decent enough. See on the back it says no Lone Wolf, although that's not really how you spell wolf, but everybody gets the idea. So really nice accessories, and like I said, you can slide the shirt over Scott Hall. Just remember about his hair getting in the way, because he does have long hair. Speaking of Hall, let's actually go on to some details, and then we'll do a comparison, because there are some things I want to point out. Once again, really nice likeness to Scott Hall. I think the hair is a little stiffer on Scott Hall than it was on Razor. I could be wrong. Maybe it is. I seem to recall Razor having softer hair. You can see he is a hairy person, I will say that, and they did a good job capturing his hairy body. On the front, his tights say Hall. On the back, Too Sweet. Elbow pads painted nicely. I think they're a white plastic painted black. Or one thing I will point out is that his elbow pads are wrong. If you're wondering why, it's this elbow pad. Scott Hall always wore a black elbow pad on the right arm. Don't know why they didn't do it with this figure, but oh well. It's nothing that you can't fix yourself. And knee pads, which are casted in white with the black painted. And then you also have his boots with the white trim at the bottom. So overall, really nice looking figure. No other details on him to speak of, but like I said, really nice likeness to Scott Hall. They capture the scruff and the curly Q perfectly. Okay, so let's actually zoom out really fast so I can actually compare the two figures. I'm going to bring Razor Ramon in here just so you can see. So here's Scott Hall. And here's Razor Ramon, and from a standpoint of just looking at the figures, you're essentially looking at the same figures, but there are some differences in both figures. From the boots to the knee, it's the same. However, let's actually raise their arm so you can see this. Razor's thigh actually goes just a tiny bit higher than Scott Hall, so they have different thigh pieces, which is a little odd because it's the same character but different thighs, so I don't know what they were doing here. And speaking of arms, you can see, if I can, Razor's arms are bigger, and one complaint I had with Razor is that his arms seemed a little short. Scott Hall seems to fix this problem, as you can see, but then when you have them side by side, it doesn't look right because Razor's arms are shorter and Scott Hall's arms are longer, and they're supposed to be the exact same person. So that's interesting to note, that the arms are different. From the bicep to the elbow, they're the same, but the forearm is completely different. They actually gave him a longer forearm. And that brings me to another point that I'm pretty sure it's not my imagination, but Razor seems slightly taller than Scott Hall, and putting them side by side, Razor seems just a smidgen taller than Scott Hall, which is really interesting because being the same character, you'd think that they'd use the same parts for them, but here we have the same person in two different characters, but there's some distinct differences about them. They're mostly the same with the exclusion of the forearms and I'm guessing the thigh piece, but the knee pads are also different, and that's just because he did change knee pads as his Scott Hall persona. But that's really interesting that Razor and Scott Hall are two different figures with two different parts, despite the fact they're the same guy. But anyway, let's actually move on to Hall's articulation. He has a ball-jointed head, which, like Razor, is limited in his upward movement. Looks down pretty good. He has side-to-side movement, as well as some slight pivot in the head, so you get some decent action there, and I'm pretty sure his hair is a little more stiff, but it's nothing you can get around. Arms on a ball joint go out, do a full 360. Oh, that's a stiff joint. He spins at the bicep, single jointed in the elbow, spins at the wrist, as well as hinge. He has an ab crunch, which works really nice. Waist swivel. Legs go forward, back, and out. He spins at the thigh. Double joint at the knee, although since he is using the bigger knee pad, it is harder to get that double joint going. But he does have 2 joints. That's 1 joint. That's 2. He swivels at the boot. And has an ankle hinge, which is really stiff on my figure, but I really do like it. As well as a pivot. I'd rather have tight ankles than loose ones. But that's my personal preference because, you know, tight ankles hold poses better. But anyway, what I'm going to do now is get Scott Hall posed for my final thoughts. Then we'll wrap up this review. So sit tight, guys. So here we have Scott Hall posed for my final thoughts. And something I forgot to mention is that you can get him to hold the spray can. The only thing is you do widen his grasp quite a bit. So my advice is if you're going to have him hold the spray can, heat up this hand first. That way you don't stretch it out like this and cause stretch marks. Because stretch marks on a figure, really bad sign. Which I'm probably going to heat his hand up and give him the spray can so he can hold it. But really nice figure. Overall, I'm excited about this purchase. I picked my Scott Hall up on Ringside Collectible WrestlingFigures.com for about $30 with shipping. That's a pretty good price considering that he is an exclusive figure. And you're not going to get him anywhere else other than Ringside Collectible WrestlingFigures.com. So if you can pick this guy up, I highly recommend him, especially if you're a fan of Scott Hall, if you're trying to build up your New World Order ranks, because I know there's a Macho Man, the Giant, who already have the NWO color scheme to them. And then add to it, we're also getting an NWO Kevin Nash next year, who's going to be the Ringside Collectible Exclusive figure, which I'm excited for. Originally, I was going to pass on Scott Hall. However, seeing that they were going to release a Kevin Nash, I just had to jump on that and pick this Scott Hall up so I can have the NWO Outsiders. If you want to pick him up, I'll leave a link in the description. Like I said, just go to WrestlingFigures.com and you can pick up your own NWO Scott Hall. But overall, I'm really happy with this purchase. I think I like him a little more than Razor Ramon, but that's just because I grew up watching this version of Scott Hall over Razor. But can't say any more good things about this figure, so I'm going to wrap up my video here. Thank you for watching, guys. Don't forget to leave a comment, subscribe to my channel. Tell me what you think of the Ringside Collectible NWO Scott Hall. And I'll see you guys later. I'm King Dragons 5000. Take care, everyone.